Good afternoon, everybody. Suburban Lanes for the 54th annual Ladies Invitational. Have first game scores on lanes 1 and 2. This is a loser's bracket. Charlotte Britt had a 148 with a 225 game with her handicap. This is a win. Conda Endeman had a nice 206 with a 258 with her handicap against Trisha Bittner with a 168 and a nice 230 game with handicap. On lanes 5 and 6, this is out of the loser's bracket. Katrina Parker had a 112, which gave her a 174 with her handicap against Lisa Penwell, 159 and a 209 with her handicap. On lanes 7 and 8, we have Brittany Slagle. This is a winner's bracket. She had a nice 226 game with a total with handicap 263 against Michelle Stahl. Michelle had a 184 and a 242 with handicap. On lanes 7, 9, and 10, excuse me. This is a winner's bracket. Kelly Yancey had a 132 to give her a 199 handicap score against Heather McLaughlin. Heather had a 179 for a 202. On lanes 11 and 12, this is a loser's bracket match. Carrie Spears had a nice 202 with a 251 handicap score against Kim Kramer, which had 164 and a nice 225 handicap score. On lanes 13 and 14, this is a loser's bracket match. Tasha Ridgway had a 168, which gives her a 200 for the handicap. And against Deb Mason, she had a 128, which gives Deb a 191 score. On lanes 15 and 16, this is a winner's bracket match. Patricia Horsley had a 130, which gave her a 164 for the handicap score against Morgan Swavel. Morgan had a 160, which gave her a 205 score. We will be back in probably about 15-20 minutes. I've been having some problems with the internet today because of the wind problems, but should be in good shape here the rest of the afternoon. So we will be talking to you in a few minutes. Okay, we're back here at the 54th Annual Ladies Invitational in Bucyrus, Ohio at Suburban Lanes. On the second game, we have on lanes 1 and 2 a loser's bracket. Charlie Britt had a 168 for a nice 245 game. For a two-game total, that gives her 316, and with handicap 470. Against Robin Pengello, Robin had a 182 for the second game and then a 220 with handicap. That gives Robin a 383 and a 459 with handicap score. On lanes 3 and 4, this is a winner's bracket. We have Conda Endeman. She had a nice 205 game, which gives her a 257 for the second game, and gives her a two-game total of 411 and 515 for the two-game total with handicap. Against Tricia Brigner, she had a 205 and a 267 with handicap for that second game. For the two-game total, she had 373 and a 497 with the handicap. On lanes 5 and 6, this is a loser's bracket match. Katrina Parker had a nice 183 game, which gives her 245 for that game with handicap, and gives her 295 and 419 with a handicap for a two-game total. Against Lisa Penwell, she had a 170, which gave her a 220 with her handicap. With a two-game total of 329 and 429 for the two-game total for Lisa. On lanes 7 and 8, this is a winner's bracket. Brittany Slagle had a 180, which gives her 217 for the handicap score. And with a two-game total of 406 and a 480 for the handicap two-game total. And Michelle Stahl had a 126 and gave her a 184 for the second game. On the two-game total, Michelle had 310 and a 426 with her handicap. On lanes 9 and 10, this is a winner's bracket. Shelley Yancey had a 153, which gave her a 220 handicap score. That gives her 285 and 419 for the two-game totals. And Heather McLaughlin had a 197, which gave her a 220 for the second game, with a 376 and a 422 handicap total. So that's a real tight match there. I know Heather's having some problems with her fingers right now. They're swelled and she's not being able to get out of the ball right. On lanes 11 and 12, this is a loser's bracket. Carrie Spears had a 175, which gave her a 224 for that game with handicap. And a two-game total, she has 377 with a 475 two-game total against Kim Kramer. Kim had a 172, which gave her a 233 for that game with handicap. And a two-game total was 336 and a 458 with the two-game total with handicap. On lanes 13 and 14, this is a loser's bracket match. Tasha Ridgway had a 190, which gave her 222 with her handicap, with a two-game total of 358 and 422 with her handicap. Against Deb Mason, Deb had a 168 game with a 231 for that handicap score. And she has total for two games, 296 and 422 handicap score. So that's a close match there with the handicaps. On lanes 15 and 16, have Patricia Horsley. She had a 218, which gave her a 252 for the second game handicap. She has for a two-game total 348 and 416 with her handicap. Against Morgan Swable, she had a 191 and 236 for that game, and gives her a grand total for two games of 351 and 441. So we will be back in about 15-20 minutes. They're about halfway through the second game, or the third game of this four-game match, and we'll be back from Suburban Lanes in Bucyrus, Ohio. Okay, we are back at Suburban Lanes, Bucyrus, Ohio, for the 54th Annual Ladies Invitational. On lanes 1 and 2, this is the loser's bracket. Charlotte Britt had a 173 game in her third game and gives her a third game with handicap, 250. For a 3-game total, she has 489 with a 720 with handicap. Her opponent, Robin Pangello, had a 185 with a 223 in the third game. Gives her a 3-game total of 568 and 682 with her handicap. On lanes 3 and 4, that's a winner's bracket. She had Conda had 213 and 624, or excuse me, 213 and a 265. On her 3-game total is 624 and a 780 with handicap. On lanes 4, Tricia Brigner had a 176 with a 238 for that third game. That gives her a total for 3 games of 549 and 735 with handicap. On lanes 5 and 6, Katrina Parker had a 154 and that gives her 216 for the game. Gives her 449 and 635 for the 3-game total. On lane 6, Lisa Penwell had a 189 and a nice 239 with a handicap. That gives her a 3-game total of 518 and 668 with her handicap. On lanes 7 and 8, this is a winner's bracket match. Brittany Slagle had a 185 for a 222. For a 3-game total, she has 691 and 702 with her handicap. And on lane 8, Michelle Stahl had a 126. That gave her a 184 for that game with a handicap. And 3-game total, she has 436 and a 610. On lanes 9 and 10, this is a winner's bracket. Shelley Yancey had a 125. That gave her 192 for the game. That gives her a 3-game total of 410 and with handicap 611 against Heather McLaughlin. Heather had a nice 210 game, which gave her a 233 third game total, and a three game total for Heather was 586 and 655. On lanes 11 and 12, this is a loser's bracket. Carrie Spears had a 157, gave her a 206. For a three-game total, that gave her 534 and 681 with a handicap. Against Kim Kramer, Kim had a 188 game that gave her 249 for that game, with a three-game total of 524 and 707 with handicap. On lanes 13 and 14, this is a loser's bracket. We have Tasha Ridgway, had a nice 244 game, and with her handicap, gave her a 276. That gave her a three-game total of 602, and with handicap 698. Against Deb Mason, Deb had a 140, and that gave her a 203 for that game. For a three-game total, Deb has 436 and 625 with a handicap. And finally, on lanes 15 and 16, this is a winner's bracket match. Patricia Horsley had a 183 and a 217 for that game, with a three-game total of 531 and 633 for a handicap. Against Morgan Swavel, Morgan had a 168 and a 213 with handicap. Gives Morgan a total three-game of 519 and 654. So see, there's some close matches here, and they're in the fourth game right now. And we should be back here in about 10-15 minutes to wrap it up and let everybody know who's in the winner's bracket, which will go on, and who's in the losers and which will drop out today. So we'll be back in about 10-15 minutes. Okay, we're back at finals today. The fourth game total is Bucyrus, Ohio at Suburban Lanes with the 54th Annual Ladies Invitational. There was some good matches here shot today. On lanes 1 and 2, this was a loser's bracket. Charlie Britt had a 174 and a 251 for the fourth game. That gives her a 663 and a 971 for her match today against Robin Pangello. Robin had a 173 and a 211 for that fourth game, which gives her a 4-game total of 741 and a 4-game total with handicap 893. So Charlie Britt goes on and Robin drops out. She was in the loser's bracket today. In the winner's bracket match, Conda Endeman shot a 187 for a 239 game with handicap for a 4-game total of 811 and a nice 1,019 pins with handicap for the 4-game match. Against Tricia Brigner, she had 190 and a 252. And Tricia for a 4-game total had 739 and 987. So Conda goes on and Tricia goes into the loser's bracket. On lanes 5 and 6, this is a loser's bracket. Katrina Parker had a 140 with a 202 for the handicap in that fourth game and gives her a 4-game total of 589 and 837. Against Lisa Penwell, Lisa had a nice 242 game, which gave her a 4-game total, or that game total of 292. And with a 4-game total of 760 and a 4-game total with handicap of 960. So Lisa moves on, still in the loser's bracket, and Katrina drops out. On lanes 7 and 8, Brittany Stagel and Michelle Stahl, that was a winner's bracket. Brittany had a 184 game in the fourth with a 221 and 4-game total of 775 and 923. And Michelle had a 129 game. That really hurt her today. And she had 187 for that fourth game with handicap with a 4-game total of 565 and 787. So Brittany goes on and Michelle goes into the loser's bracket. On lanes 9 and 10, that's a winner's bracket total. Shelley Yancey had a 135 with a 202. That gave her a 545 4-game total and 813. And Heather McLaughlin had a nice 222 game, which gave her a 245 for that game. Gave her a 4-game total of 808 and 900. So Heather stays in the winner's bracket and Shelley moves into the loser's bracket now. On lanes 11 and 12, that's a loser's bracket. Carrie Spears had a 162, which gave her a 211 for that game with handicap. And with a 4-game total of 696 and 892 for the 4-game total with handicap. Against Kim Kramer, Kim had a 144 and a 205 in that fourth game. Gives Kim a 668 grand total and 912 with her handicap. So Kim moves on and Carrie Spears is no longer in the mix of things. On lanes 13 and 14, Tasha Ridgway had a nice 214 game, which gave her a 246 for that game with a handicap. And a 4-game total of 816 and 944. And her opponent, Deb Mason, had a 151 and a 214 in that game with a handicap for a 4-game total of 587 and 839. So that puts Deb out, and Tasha still lives another day. And then finally on lanes 15 and 16, Patricia Horsley had a nice 226 game, gave her a 260 for that game with a handicap. She ended up 4-game total of 757 and 893 with a handicap. And Morgan Swavel had a 147 and a 192 with that handicap. Finished up 4-game total of 666 and with a handicap 846. So Patricia stays in the winner's side, and Morgan is on the loser's bracket now. So what we have next on Tuesday in the loser's bracket, they will be bowling. Kim Kramer will bowl Shelley Yancey. Lisa Penwell will bowl Tricia Brigner. Tasha Ridgway will bowl Morgan Swavel. Charlie Britt will bowl Michelle Stahl. They will bowl on Tuesday. Next Saturday, Patricia Horsley will bowl Brittany Slagle. Heather McLaughlin will bowl Conda Enteman. So until later, this is Bill Hansen signing off. The 54th Ladies Invitational in Bucyrus, Ohio from Suburban Lanes. And catch us on the final match coming up in 2 weeks, and we will be back then live and on radio too. So